It is November 22nd, 1718, off the coast of North Carolina. The blast of cannon fire and muskets fill the morning air as the sloop, the Adventure, is coming under a surprise attack. Lieutenant Robert Maynard shouts from the upper deck, "I will come aboard of you as soon as I can," threatening the crew of the Adventure in the near distance. The captain of the Adventure takes a glass of liquor and drinks to Maynard with these words, "Damnation seize my soul if I give you quarters, or take any from you." His name was Edward Teach, also known as Edward Thatch, but we all know him better as the infamous pirate Blackbeard, and this day would be his last stand. A hard battle was fought, with Blackbeard eventually boarding Maynard's ship. They fired their flintlocks at each other, then threw them away. Blackbeard drew his cutlass and managed to break Maynard's sword. Against superior training and a slight advantage in numbers, the pirates were pushed towards the bow. As Maynard drew back to fire once again, Blackbeard moved in to attack him, but was slashed across the neck by one of Maynard's soldiers. Badly wounded, he was then attacked and killed by several more of Maynard's crew. When the gun smoke cleared and the swords were put down, it was noted that Blackbeard had been shot 5 times and cut about 20, fighting until his last breath. Welcome to the Poison Culture Podcast, where people of interest start our news. I'm your host, Cody Gregory. Today, we are looking at, on the 304th anniversary of Blackbeard's death, just how his myth and lore is still talked about today, and how your self-identity can benefit from a little pirate marketing. By circumstance, he was indeed a pirate, but ahead of his time as possibly one of the world's best self-made marketers. Blackbeard knew how the value of targeting his image would have a positive effect on his line of business. When a ship was scouted to plunder, it made no sense to go into battle and damage it with cannon fire. Often, captured ships in good condition were taken and put into service by the pirates, sometimes splitting the crew if they were large enough numbers, creating flotillas. Secondly, a good captain had to think about the cargo on board and to not damage it for resale value. Stealing linens, spices, and hardware was the real pirate's treasure, and the real gold was if there was Madeira wine stowed away. Blasting cannonballs through barrels of goods was just bad business. So how would you convince a merchant ship's captain to lay down arms to oncoming pirates? Well, to Blackbeard's advantage, his namesake came with tales of terror. Some say he was the devil himself. When the black flag flew, it would draw cold-blooded fear through the merchant crew's veins. It's one thing to be attacked by pirates. It's another thing when that ship's captain may very well take your soul straight to hell. Once described as such a figure that imagination cannot form an idea of a fury from hell to look more frightful. Compared to other pirates, Blackbeard didn't use much violence. He didn't need to. His fearsome image got him the results he wanted. Blackbeard, of course, got his nickname from the long, thick beard he grew, covering his face almost up to his eyes. A far cry from the clean-cut image of nobility of the time. A beard worn like his was struck as outlaw. Blackbeard was tall, with broad shoulders. He wore knee-length boots with dark clothing, topped with a wide hat and sometimes a long coat with brightly colored silk or velvet. In times of battle, he wore a sling over his shoulders with 3 brace of pistols hanging in holsters like bandoliers. To add to his devilish appearance, he was known to stick lighted slow matches and fuses under his hat and twist them in his beard to give off smoke to theatrically give a shocking sight to see from his enemies. This self-awareness to strike fear into men was a genius ploy. It was said, "In the commonwealth of pirates, he who goes the greatest lengths of wickedness is looked upon with a kind of envy amongst them. The hero of whom we are writing was thoroughly accomplished this way, and some of his frolics and wickedness were so extravagant as if he was aimed at making his men believe he was the devil incarnate." There was a time when Blackbeard's own second-in-command, Israel Hands, was shot in the knee when Blackbeard fired at another of his crew, missing him but striking Hands. Hands asked Blackbeard for the reasons, whereupon he remarked that If he did not now and then kill one of them, they would forget who he was. Blackbeard's flagship was a product of image change in itself. Believed to have been built in 1710 in Bristol, England, the 200-ton vessel captured by French privateers and named La Concorde. For years she sailed as a French merchant vessel, but most of it as a slave-trading ship. She was captured by Blackbeard and his pirates on the 28th of November, 1717, near the island of St. Vincent in the West Indies. After selling her cargo of slaves at Martinique, Blackbeard made the vessel into his flagship, adding more heavy cannon, about 30 to 40 cannons, and renaming her the Queen Anne's Revenge. Marketing is more about understanding the society and environment we live in order to address an offer. These acts of showmanship and self-marketing were highly effective in the golden age of piracy in the 1700s, investing in a graphic identity that made sense to his market and persona, creating an image so fearsome everyone in the Atlantic coastline, from the Americas to the Bahamas, knew who he was, 300 years before TV, internet, and social media. It's quite the feat to achieve that has left its mark in the history books. Your self-identity is described as a combination of personal traits, abilities, physical attributes, or interests or hobbies that you identify yourself with. The age-old question of, who am I? The self-identity of Edward Teach transformed him into Blackbeard. Personal traits? Brooding. Abilities? Sailing. Physical attributes? Long black beard. Interests? Pirating. Hobbies? Scaring merchant sailors for profit gains. When you think about yourself in these terms, you can start to unravel who the real you is. And if you're a small business owner, this is a helpful tool for understanding yourself, plus your clients. Blackbeard and the rest of the Golden Age of pirates were highly effective in knowing their self-identity. Above all, they knew the exposure their image created would affect the engagement in their high seas transactions. A lot of key words that still hold true for today's business world. When you are confident in your business identity, you will create exposure that will determine the effectiveness of your engagement. No matter your business, if you are 100% all in on your image as a whole, customers will see the value in your self-worth. Blackbeard was a pirate, so he became the pirate. You may have a small business selling handmade jewelry, for example. In your mind frame, be the jeweler. Be the baker. Be the soap maker. The key point here is to be creative and interesting with your identity. Use your traits and abilities to your advantage, and the cogs in the business machine will start to turn. I hope you enjoyed this little hot take on the world of Blackbeard as I celebrate his 304th anniversary of his death. He certainly lived a life of lawless adventure and excess that changed the world forever. And today he is solidified as one of the people of interest that start our news. Thank you for listening to Poison Culture. Follow us on Instagram at Poison Culture Podcast. Until next time, stay spooky.